Yes, good afternoon everyone, good afternoon. So dear students, we were discussing about the buoyant force, right? The Archimedes principle, buoyant force. The buoyant force will be equal to the weight of the volume of fluid displaced by the body. After buoyant force we discussed, and we also solved some numericals on buoyant force, buoyancy also. After that we discussed about the center of buoyancy. The point from where this buoyant force actually is passing is called as the center of buoyancy. And after that we discuss about the stability conditions. Now next is the stability conditions. Stability conditions. Now stability conditions, we have three type of conditions. One, it can be a stable equilibrium. Another, it can be unstable equilibrium. And third, it can be a neutral equilibrium. Now what is the meaning of stable, unstable and neutral? Now let us revise. For example, this is a body, okay, which is, you can say this body is submerged inside a fluid, okay. Let us say this is a type of body. And the first case is the center of buoyancy B, it is in a lower section as compared to the center of gravity G. Or you can say that center of buoyancy lies below the center of gravity G. So here we have this G and here we have this B. So buoyant force will be acting in the upward direction and the weight of the body will be acting in the downward direction. So if you give it a clockwise movement, you will find that this resisting moment is also clockwise in nature. And I told you that this type of equilibrium is said to be as unstable equilibrium. Unstable equilibrium. The second type of equilibrium, the second type of case was if B is less than G. So let us say it is a submerged body, somewhat like this, it is a submerged body, and here we have this B and here we have this G. It acts in the downward direction, it acts in the upward direction. If you give it a clockwise moment, the resisting moment will be anti-clockwise in nature. And this type of equilibrium is said to be as a stable equilibrium. Stable equilibrium. After this, the number 3 was the neutral equilibrium when B is equal to G. If B is equal to G, so this is a body. If B is also here, G is also here. If you are giving a clockwise movement, it will just rotate, it will come to at rest because there is no resisting moment happening. These we have the three types of equilibrium. This is called as a neutral equilibrium. Neutral equilibrium. Neutral equilibrium. So we discuss about the stability of submerged bodies with the help of the center of buoyancy and the center of gravity. Let us discuss one question. Let us solve one question here to further understand the concept of Archimedes principle. The question is, so a wooden block is there. A wooden block is there, okay. It floats at mercury water interface. Wooden block floats at mercury water interface. Okay, this is the wooden block given. This is the wooden block given. It floats at the mercury and water interface. Above it we have water and below it we have mercury, Hg. If the specific gravity of the wooden block, if the specific gravity of this wooden block, it is given as 5.23. 5.23 is the specific gravity of this wooden block. It is saying that the ratio of A by B, this is your A given and this is the B given. The ratio of A by B will be equal to dash corrected up to 2 decimal places. Corrected up to 2 decimal places. Try to understand the question. We have a wooden block, okay, it is a wooden block whose specific gravity is given to us as 5.23 is the specific gravity. And this A portion of this block, it is inside water, and this B portion, it is inside mercury. So obviously some buoyant force will be acting, which will be equal to the weight of the volume of fluid displaced by the body. We have to find the ratio of this A by B, that how much is this A and how much is this B and how much is the ratio corrected up to 2 decimal places. That is what we have to ultimately find in this question. Okay, now it floats. It means that it is in equilibrium. At the interface it is in equilibrium. So what does it mean? It means that the weight of the wooden block, it is equal to the buoyant force in this portion in the due to of water plus the buoyant force in mercury. The total weight of the wooden block will be equal to the buoyant force, the total buoyant force, and total buoyant force will be equal to buoyant force inside mercury and buoyant force inside water. Now how much is the weight of the block? It will be equal to gamma into volume, simple. So gamma of this block will be equal to 5.23 into rho of water into G. And what is the volume of this block? So this is, let us say it is my X and this is my Y, and let us say the width is 1 unit. So X into Y into 1. Or I can also write A plus B into X into 1. I can also write it like this. It should be equal to buoyant force in water, that will be equal to volume of the water displaced by the body. Volume of the water will be what? Volume of this part. This part, the volume will be A into X into Y. A into X into Y into rho W. This is also rho W into rho W into G. Plus, below we have mercury. So that will be equal to B into X into Y. Okay, not Y, A into X into 1, because the width I am taking it as 1. Okay, I am taking it as 1. A into X into 1. A, B into X into, and then we have this 1 and multiplied by mercury is 13.6 into G. This is the total equation that I am getting. So rho W, rho W, rho W, X, X, X. So what we are left with? G, G, G. So what we are left with? We are left with 5.23 times of Y, and Y is equal to A plus B is equal to A, only A plus 13.6 B. So that will be equal to 5.23A plus 5.23B is equal to A plus 13.6 times of B. So that will be equal to, A will come here, it will be equal to 4.23A, because 5.23 minus 1 will be 4.23A, will be equal to 13.6 minus 5.23. 13.6 minus 5.23 will be equal to 8.37. 8.37B. So A by B will be equal to 8.37 divided by 4.23. Divided by 4.23 will come out to be 1.978 or 1.98 only, right? 1.98. 1.98. So the correct answer of this question will be 1.98. Yes, Divyanshu, very good. After that, after this submerged body, we discussed about the floating bodies also. After this, we discuss about the floating bodies. Floating bodies, for example, a ship is there. A ship or boat is there. Okay. To determine the stability of a floating body, we introduce the new term which is called as the metacentric height. Because the buoyancy will keep on changing. If you have a boat like this, okay. Now, if you have a boat like this, if you increase the load, the center of buoyancy might come here. It might come here. It might come here. It can change. If it is also pitching or rolling is also happening, then also the center of buoyancy can change, right? To get rid of this, we introduce a new term which is called as the metacentric height. So what is the metacentric height? So the point of intersection, so there is an axis of this boat. So there is an axis of this boat. This is the axis of this boat. This is the center of buoyancy. Somewhere here is the center of buoyancy. Buoyant force acting in this direction. There will be a line of intersection, the point of intersection of the axis of the, you can say, this body, this ship, and the center of buoyancy, the line of action of center of buoyancy force, right? And this is what is called as the metacenter. And the height of this particular thing from the centroid, this is your M, so GM is called as the metacentric height. GM is called as the metacentric height. And GM is equals to 1 divided by the volume displaced minus BG. I divided by the volume displaced minus BG. BG is the distance between the center of gravity and the center of buoyancy. Okay, so we discuss about the metacentric height. After that, we discuss about the stability criteria also. The first stability criteria was if M lies above G. If M is lying above G, okay, then if you are giving it is a clockwise movement, so this is acting in the downward direction, this is acting in the upward direction, so we have anti-clockwise movement and clockwise here, it is said to be as a stable condition. If number 2, if M lie below G it is unstable, and if number C, M is equal to G, it is said to be as neutral equilibrium. Neutral equilibrium. So this is also what we have discussed in the previous classes. And regarding this I told you that this I has to be taken as the minimum moment of inertia. It should be minimum. For example, a rectangle is there. So this rectangle might have, this is your D, this rectangle might have the moment of inertia about this XX axis. This will be equal to IXX will be equal to BD cube divided by 12. And we also have this IYY also. IYY is equal to DB cube divided by 12. And clearly IXX is greater than IYY. So here we will always take the lower moment of inertia. And what was the reason for that? I also told you the reason also. Because lower the moment of inertia, lower chances it has of getting destabilized. For example, a ship is there, a boat is there. Let us say this is a boat. This is a boat, right? The boat is going like this. It can have this type of motion which is called as the rolling, or it can have this type of motion which is called as pitching. right? If it has this type of motion, it has very less chances that the boat or the ship will get drawn. It has very less chances, but in this condition it has a lot of chances of getting drawn. So that is why while designing any ship we always consider the lower moment of inertia, right? So this part, so the moment of inertia about this point, okay, that is dB cube by 12, not about this point. It will also be going like this also, but not about this axis, not about this axis, but about this axis, because it has more chances of getting drawn, which is called as rolling. Okay, after this the metacentric height, then we move to the time period of oscillation also. You can also understand the time period of oscillation. The time period of this oscillation is given by time period of this oscillation is given by 2 pi under root of k square divided by g into gm. So time period is inversely proportional to under root of the metacentric height. From this also there might be some question in examination. What is this k? K is the least radius of gyration. It will be equal to under root of I minimum divided by a. That is the least radius of gyration. After this we discussed about the rigid body motion. Rigid body motion. So for example, this is a fuel tank. It is going in this direction. So there will be a profile formed like this, okay? And this theta will be equal to this theta. Tan theta is equal to acceleration along the x direction divided by the acceleration due to gravity. This will be equal to this. And we also solved some questions in which if no spilling of the oil should be there, what should happen? So this will become equal to this. Let us say this is your y and this is your x, for example. So y will become equal to x for no spilling case. So whatever is there, the downward portion will be here. We also solved some numericals on this topic also. That was the rigid body motion. You can also have a forced vortex flow. In case of forced vortex flow, this delta P or the delta pressure is given by rho omega square into x square divided by 2. Rho omega square into x square divided by 2. This was also the thing that we also derived also. Okay, what is this delta P? Delta P is the difference in pressure between any two points which are x distance separated. Okay, for example, this is the x distance separated, so pressure at this point minus pressure at this point will be equal to this thing. So you know that it is showing a parabolic curve. Below it is x square here. X square means it is showing you a parabolic curve. So that is how we calculate also. And if delta P is equal to rho into g into z, so it will be z will come out to be equal to omega square into x square divided by 2 times of g. That will be z. Z from any point. That is z. This z will be equal to omega square into x square divided by 2 times of g. We also calculated the volume of this paraboloid. The volume of this paraboloid will be equal to pi r square divided by 2 into z. Pi r square divided by 2 into z. That is the volume of this paraboloid. After this, the static portion got over, it got finished, and we started with the kinematics portion. So in kinematics portion, what we discussed, students, so first of all, we started with the Lagrangian approach and the Euler's approach, right? So after that, we started with the fluid kinematics. In fluid kinematics, we have two approaches. One is called as the Lagrangian approach, and one we have the Euler's approach. In Lagrangian approach, we make the video of the, you can say, a particular particle. We study the properties of particular particle everywhere, wherever it is going. In the Euler's approach, I told you that we take a photograph of it and we calculate the properties of a particular particle at various different locations. That is what the Lagrangian and Euler's approach, the difference is all about. After that, we discussed about the types of flow. So first we have the steady and unsteady flow. Steady and unsteady flow. I told you that whenever it is steady, so ready, steady, go, it means that it is talking about time. So when the fluid properties are not changing with respect to time, it is said to be as a steady flow, and if it is changing with respect to time, it is said to be as an unsteady flow. If the fluid properties, they are not changing with respect to time, it is said to be as an unsteady flow, and if the fluid properties with respect to time, they are not changing, they are constant, it is said to be as a steady flow. We discussed this thing also, steady and unsteady flow. After this, we discussed the second type of flow is called as the uniform and non-uniform flow. Second one was the uniform and non-uniform flow. And non-uniform flow. So uniform and non-uniform, if the properties are not changing with respect to the space coordinate at a particular time, that type of fluid is called as a uniform. That type of fluid is called as a uniform flow. And if the fluid properties are changing with every distance or every space, that type of fluid is called as a non-uniform flow. So this the dou S upon dou S. S is the space ordinate x, y, z. At any time t, if it is equal to 0, it is uniform. And if it is not equal to 0, it is non-uniform. After this, we discuss about the combination flows also. We can have a steady uniform, we can have an unsteady non-uniform, unsteady uniform, etc., etc. We can have different types of combination of flows also. After this, we also discussed about the compressible and incompressible flow. Compressible and incompressible flow. If the density is not changing by the change in pressure, that is, it is said to be as an incompressible flow, and it is said to be as an incompressible flow. And if the density, if you apply some pressure, it changes, it is said to be as an compressible flow. We also discussed the compressible and incompressible also. After this, we discussed about the acceleration of a fluid particle. Acceleration of a fluid particle. So I told you that this U, V and W, they are basically for unsteady flow, they are a function of X, Y, Z and T. And you want to determine the acceleration because velocity vector is what? Velocity vector is a function of U, V and W, and U, V, W are a function of X, Y, Z and T. So we have to apply the total differentiation. Now what is total differentiation? I have already told you in mathematics that if something is related to this and this is related to that, and you have to directly calculate the relation between this and this, what do? We apply the concept of total differentiation. So after applying the concept of total differentiation, what we had ultimately got was the change in V, dV will be equal to dV upon dou x into dx, dou V upon dou x into dx plus dou v upon dou y into dy plus dou v upon dou z into dz. That is what ultimately we had got, and plus dt also, and plus dou v upon dou t into dt also. If you divide it with dt, you will ultimately getting acceleration. So dividing it with dt means dt, dt, dt and dt. The acceleration vector comes out to be, because dx upon dt becomes equal to u, the acceleration vector comes out to be equal to u dou v upon dou x plus v dou v upon dou y plus w dou v upon dou z plus dou v vector upon dou t. This was the acceleration vector which we were getting. And this is called as the convective acceleration, which is with respect to distance, and the last one is called as the temporal acceleration or the local acceleration. This is called as the local or temporal acceleration. Temporal acceleration, and this is called as the convective acceleration, CA, convective acceleration. U into dou v upon dou x plus v into dou v upon dou y plus w into dou v upon dou z is called as the convective acceleration. Then this acceleration is also a function of acceleration ax I cap plus ay j cap plus az k cap, and we found out the value of ax ay az also. The value of ax ay az came out to be, if you further open it and you compare the x, y and z terms, it will ultimately come out to be ax will be equal to u dou u upon dou x plus v dou u upon dou y plus uvw dou u upon dou z plus dou u upon dou t. Similarly ay, similarly az, and the total acceleration magnitude will be equal to under root of ax square plus ay square plus az square. Even if you get the acceleration here, you can take the magnitude of that also, you will get the same answer. So how we have got this? We have just opened the bracket, and by comparing the x term, y term and z term, we have got this thing, okay? So ultimately you will be getting this thing. This is with respect to time is called as the temporal acceleration or local acceleration, and this term is called as the convective acceleration. And then for different types of flows, if it is a steady flow, if it is a uniform flow, it is a non-uniform flow, what will the value of the acceleration we have already, I have already told you. If it is a uniform and steady flow, if it is a uniform flow, this will become equal to 0. Steady flow, this will be equal to 0. So for a uniform and steady flow, acceleration will be 0. Everything will be 0. We also solved 2 or 3 numericals based on that. If it is a uniform and steady flow, the acceleration will be equal to 0. After this, we discussed about the continuity equation in 3 dimension. Let me rub it. Okay, so it came out to be dou rho upon dou t. I also told you the derivation also, but now I am not telling you the derivation. Plus dou upon dou x into rho into u plus dou upon dou y into rho into v plus dou upon dou z rho into w is equal to 0. This was the continuity equation in 3 dimension, general form of continuity equation. And if the it is a steady flow, this becomes equal to 0. Okay, a lot of cases are there with respect to this. Okay, for a steady and incompressible flow, it becomes dou u upon dou x plus dou v upon dou y plus dou w upon dou z is equal to 0 for 3 dimension. For 2 dimension, it becomes dou u upon dou x plus dou v upon dou y is equal to 0 for 2 dimension. What is the use of continuity equation? In many questions, some unknowns are given to us, and it is said that flow word is used. So if it is a flow, whatever type of flow it is, it should follow the continuity equation. Okay. Then depending upon the type of question, if it is saying steady flow, we have to put it as equal to 0. Okay. So depending upon the various types of flows, we have to see that which equation will be valid. But if in question, if it is written flow, so wherever flow is written, that should satisfy one of the continuity equations. So continuity equation is very important for solving numericals. After this, we also discuss about the continuity equation in 1 dimension, which is the pipe flow. That is rho 1 A1 into V1 is equal to rho 2 into A2 into V2. And this equation is also valid for incompressible fluid also. For compressible fluid also. For incompressible, it will become A1 V1 is equals to A2 V2. That also we have discussed. After this, we discuss about the streamline, path line and streak line. We discuss about the streamline, path line and streak line. So what is a streamline? It is a hypothetical line that if you draw a tangent to that line, it will give you the direction of the velocity vector. Okay, that is what ultimately we are getting. What is path line? If you, in the Lagrangian approach, if you continuously observe the particle where it is traveling, so that line which you will be getting is called as a path line. And what is a streak line? Streak line also I have told you that if some particle is going like this, you will measure its, that in how much time it has reached here. One more particle, how much time it has reached here. One more particle, how much time. If you join all these coordinates, you will be getting a streak line. That also I told you. The equation of streamline that we were getting, equation of streamline is dx upon u is equal to dy upon v is equal to dz upon w. This was the equation of streamline that we were getting with the help of the curl vector. If you put the curl equal to 0, because streamline is equal to the directional, is parallel to the direction, or it gives you the direction of the velocity vector. So v cross dr should be equal to 0, and v cross dr, from here we are getting this expression. After this, we solved some questions also. Then we had the potential and stream functions. After this, we discuss about the potential and the stream functions. Potential and stream functions. Now, what is a potential function? So, potential function, it basically tells you about the head. For example, let us say that this is a pipe. This is a pipe, right? In this pipe, if friction losses are also there, you will find that the pressure head will keep on decreasing. It will keep on decreasing. But there will be a particular line, hypothetical line, that if you draw that particular line, you will be getting that the head, if you put a piezometer here, if you put a piezometer here, if you put a piezometer here, you will be getting equal heads. So the line joining equal heads is called as a potential function line. Okay, that is called as a potential function line, that is given by phi, a potential function. What is a stream function? It basically tells you about the discharge, that as you are going from this particular point to this particular point, the discharge must be changing. So how much the discharge is changing, that is basically told you with the help of this stream function, which is psi. So psi 1 minus psi 2, it gives you the discharge. So potential gives you the potential difference or the head, and psi basically gives you the discharge. After this, dear students, we also discussed about the rotational and irrotational flow. We discussed about the vorticity also. Okay, we discussed about rotational, irrotational, vorticity, all those concepts we discussed after that. Then we discuss about the vorticity. It is equal to 2 times of omega. That is the vorticity. Okay. And how to calculate the vorticity? V vector cross R vector. From there we got the vorticity I, J, then we had this K, dou upon dou x, so this is del operator, so dou upon dou x, dou upon dou y, dou upon dou z, and then we had this is V, then we had this U, V and W. From there we get this vorticity. Okay, and this W or this omega, it comes out to be half of I, J, K, dou by dou x, dou by dou y, dou by dou z, U, V and W. From this we get this omega. If this omega comes out to be equal to 0, it is said to be as an irrotational flow, otherwise it is said to be as a rotational flow if it is not equal to 0. So whether a flow is irrotational or rotational, we get it from this thing. Okay, and in mathematics I told you that the irrotational flow is also called as a solenoidal vector. If this becomes equal to 0, that type of vector is called as a solenoidal vector. In mathematics I told you this thing, right? So there might be a question that if it is solenoidal, what will happen? If velocity vector is solenoidal, then what will happen? Or some value of some unknown he might be asking you if it is a solenoidal vector. Okay, then we also solved some questions also. I told you that u is equal to minus of d psi by dy and v is equal to plus of d psi by dx. This also I told you, and u is equal to minus of dou phi by dou x and v is equal to minus of dou phi by dou y. This also I told you in the previous classes, and with the help of this we got the equations of equipotential line, we got the equations of equistream function lines also, and we also solved some numericals based on these formulae in the previous classes. Okay, so this was about the kinematics portion that we have already discussed. After that we started with the dynamics portion. Let us solve a question. Dimensions of stream function are, question. Dimensional formula of stream function psi is equal to what? Option A, m l t minus 1. Option B, l t minus 1. Option C, L square t minus 1. L square t minus 1. Option D, LT. Who will give me the answer of this question? Now, who will give me the answer of this question? The dimensional formula of psi will be equal to what? MLT minus 1, LT minus 1, L square T minus 1 or LT? Okay, waiting for answer. One more question. One more question is there. Velocity field is defined by u is equal to 2y square. U is equal to 2y square. V is equal to 3x, W equal to 0. V is equal to 3x, W is equal to 0. At point 1 to 0. At point 1, 2, 0. Velocity, local acceleration, convective acceleration. Velocity, local acceleration, convective acceleration will be equal to what? Option number A, root 73,024. Root 73,024. Option number B, 8.54 root 2. 8.54 root 2. 24 root 2. Option number C, root 73,000. Root 73,000. 24 root 2. And option number D, 8.540 root 24. 8.540 root 24. C. What is this C? C is L square T minus 1. Yes, very good. Because you know that dou psi with respect to distance, whether it is x or y, it gives you velocity. It gives you velocity, right? So velocity into distance, psi will be equal to velocity into distance x, right? Now the dimensional formula of velocity is meter per second, or LT minus 1, and x will be L, so it will be equal to L square T minus 1. So this will be the correct answer of this question, C. Now what will be the answer of this question? Waiting for the answer. Try to solve it. You will get the answer. Okay, 2a. Let us try to solve it. So u is equal to this, v is equal to this. First of all, make the velocity vector. The velocity vector will be equal to 2y square I cap plus 3xj cap plus wk cap. W means 0. Now let us put the point 1 and 2 also. The velocity vector will be equal to 1 and 2. 2 to 4, 4 into 2 is 8. 8i cap plus 3 into 1, that is 3j cap, and plus 0k cap. This is the velocity vector. 8i cap plus 3j cap is the velocity vector. Now we have to find the velocity. The magnitude of velocity will be equal to under root of 8 square plus 3 square. 8 square is 64 and plus 9 under root of 74 will be this. So velocity vector is 73. Under root of 73 will be this velocity vector. So either this is the correct answer, this is the correct answer, because 8.54 square will also be, I guess, 70 something. 8.54 square or under root of 73. Under root of 73 will be equal to 8.54. Yeah, that can also be the correct answer. Yes. So under root of 73 is this. Now second thing we have to find is the local acceleration and the convective acceleration. Sorry. To find the local acceleration and the convective acceleration, now dear students, local acceleration, now you see that nothing is dependent on time. Nothing is dependent on time, and local acceleration, it only depends upon time. So this velocity is an independent of time, so I can say that the local acceleration will be equal to 0. So local acceleration will be equal to 0, so it means that either this is the correct answer, or this is the correct answer, this is the correct answer, right? This is not the correct answer, because here with the local acceleration is under root 2. Either this or this or this. Now the only thing is that we have to find the convective acceleration. That is the thing that we have to find. The velocity vector is given to us. V is equals to 8i cap plus 3j cap plus 0k cap, and we have to find the local acceleration, convective acceleration. So convective acceleration, we know that ax will be equal to u dou u divided by dou x plus v dou u divided by dou y plus w dou u divided by dou z. That will be ax. Let me rub this. Ay will be equal to u dou v divided by dou x plus v dou v divided by dou y plus w dou v divided by dou z, and az will be equal to, so whatever I am getting the convective acceleration, because local acceleration is 0. Otherwise I would have also but time term is not there, so that is why it will be equal to 0. U dou w upon dou x plus v dou w upon dou uv dou w upon dou z, it will be equal to 0. Az will be equal to 0 because my w is equal to 0. Now u is equal to what? U is equal to 2y square and v is equal to 3 times of x. Now ax will be equal to u. What is u? 2y square multiplied by dou u upon dou x will be 0 plus v 3 times of x and dou u upon dou y will be equal to 4 times of y and plus that will be equal to 0. So ax will be equal to 4 into 3 is 12xy. 12xy, that will be equal to a into x. If you put the ordinates 1, 2, 0, it will be equal to 12 into 2, that will be equal to 24. So 24 units is my ax. Ay, similarly ay will be equal to u into dou v upon dou x will be equal to 2y square into 3, that will be equal to 6y square. And otherwise everything will be equal to 0 because v into dou v upon dou y is 0, this is also 0. If you put the points also, it will be equal to 2 into 4, that will be 24 units. 24 units. So the total acceleration will be equal to under root of ax square plus ay square, that will be 24 under root of 2. 24 square plus 24 square, taking 24 common out, it will be 24 under root of 2. So local acceleration is 0, convective acceleration is 24 under root of 2, it is 24 under root of 2. This is the correct answer of this question, C. So C is the correct answer. Yes, C is the correct answer. Yes, C. After this, we started with the fluid dynamics portion. What is the time now? 2:11. Okay. In fluid dynamics portion, I told you that there are a number of forces acting on a particular fluid body, right? That is Fx, or the total forces acting in x direction, will be equal to the force due to gravity in x direction plus the force acting due to pressure force acting in x direction plus then we had force due to compressibility acting in x direction. Then we might also have forces due to viscosity and turbulency. Forces due to viscosity in x direction and plus forces due to turbulence in x direction. GPCVT. Yes, GPCVT. Now among this, if we neglect force due to compressibility, if we neglect this force due to compressibility, number one, if we neglect FC, the equation that we will be getting is called as the Reynolds equation. Reynolds equation. Number two, if we neglect FC and FT, FC and F turbulence, right? If we neglect Fc and Ft, the equation that we will be getting is called as the Navier-Stokes equation. Navier-Stokes equation. And number 3, if we also neglect, or if we just consider Fg and Fp, if we just consider this and this, the force due to gravity and only the force due to pressure force, the equation that we are getting is called as the Euler's equation of motion. Euler's equation of motion. And after this, students, we also derived the Euler's equation of motion for a streamline, and the equation came out to be somewhat like this, that is dp upon rho plus gdz and plus vdv is equal to 0. This was the equation that we were getting if we derived how we derived the Euler's equation, and this was only valid for a steady flow. For a steady flow, the Euler's equation was only valid for a steady flow, because there was a term coming dou u upon dou t, and we said that if the flow is steady, this becomes equal to 0, and ultimately we were getting this equation. So this is the equation, Euler's equation, that we have already derived. If we integrate the Euler's equation, the equation that we are getting is called as the Bernoulli's equation. Okay, now first of all, let us assume what are the various assumptions in Euler's theory, Euler's equation of motion. See, Euler's equation of motion is only valid if we consider the gravity force and the pressure force. It means that we have neglected the force due to compressibility. So the first criteria, the first assumption is that in Euler's theory, because the same assumptions will be valid for Bernoulli also. Euler's theory is derived from Bernoulli equation is derived from Euler's equation. So whatever the assumptions are valid for Euler's equation of motion, the same assumptions are valid for Bernoulli's equation of motion also, right? So force due to compressibility is 0. It means that it is incompressible in nature. The fluid is incompressible. Number 2, force due to viscous effects are 0. It means that it is inviscid flow. There is no shear stress, inviscid. Or you can say tau is equal to 0. Number 3, turbulence 0. Turbulence 0 means it is a laminar flow. It is a laminar flow. Or you can say irrotational also. Irrotational. Number 4, steady flow. Steady flow. So these are the assumptions which are also valid for Bernoulli also. Now if you integrate it, the equation that we are getting is called as the Bernoulli equation, that is P upon rho into G plus V square upon 2 times of G and plus Z is equal to some constant C. So these are the assumptions which are valid for Bernoulli's equation also. Because assumptions in Bernoulli's equation are important. Every second or third year, these questions are being asked in examination. And I also told you that this P upon rho G is called as the pressure head. Now what is head? Energy per unit weight is called as head. This is the pressure head. This is the velocity head. This is the velocity head. And this is the datum head. Datum head. This is called as a pressure energy per unit weight, kinetic energy per unit weight, potential energy per unit weight. And how we got the expressions also, I told you that thing also, right? So then we discussed about the Bernoulli's equation for a real fluid. This was for an ideal fluid, if no losses are there, but there might be some losses also, right? So for real fluid, we changed the Bernoulli equation a little bit. We said that this P upon rho into G plus V square upon 2 times of G plus Z, okay, and plus head losses. Plus head losses should be equal to some constant. or P1 upon rho g plus V1 square upon 2 times rho g plus Z1 is equals to P2 upon rho g plus V2 square upon 2 times rho g plus Z2 and plus head losses. So for real fluids, some head losses will also come. They might be minor head losses or there might be major head losses. Major head losses are also called as the frictional losses. Frictional losses. And minor head losses may be because of change in cross section area, right? Or sudden expansion, sudden contraction, or some bend might be there, or some due to other factors also. But major are the frictional head losses, which we calculate by two equations. One is the Darcy-Weisbach equation and second one is the Hagen-Pauli equation. Okay. For laminar flow, we use both the equations, Darcy-Weisbach also as well as Hagen-Pauli also. But generally we prefer the Hagen-Pauli equation for laminar flow. And for turbulent flow, we do not use the Hagen-Pauli equation. We only go for the Darcy-Weisbach equation. After that, we discuss the application of Bernoulli equation. We discuss about the Venturi meter, orifice meter, pitot tube and rotameter. Application of Bernoulli's equation. Number one was Venturi meter for discharge. Number two was orifice meter for discharge. Number three was pitot tube for velocity. Number four was rotameter for discharge. So these are the various applications of Bernoulli's equation. Now let me directly write the equation. So for pitot tube, we are getting the actual discharge is equal to coefficient of discharge multiplied by A1 A2 divided by under root of A1 square minus A2 square multiplied by 2G into H star. And what is this H star? This H star is not the center of pressure, but this H star we have already derived. This H star is delta H in the manometer into rho of manometer upon rho minus 1. And if it is an inverted U-tube manometer where this rho m becomes less than rho, for inverted U-tube it is delta H 1 minus rho upon rho m upon rho for inverted U-tube. This is for U-tube differential manometer, U-tube differential manometer, and this is inverted U-tube differential manometer. So this is the application of Venturi meter. CD is the coefficient of discharge, that is the coefficient of discharge. Then we discussed about the orifice meter also. And what is this A1 and A2? I have already told you when I was explaining you. Then we discuss about the orifice meter. So orifice meter is also given by CD into A1 into A0. Now this A0 is the other area. Under root of A1 square minus A0 square under root of 2G into H star, where H star has the same values that we have already discussed in Venturi meter also. That is delta H into rho m minus rho m upon rho minus 1 is the value of H star. After that we also discuss some numerical also, and then after that we discuss about the pitot tube. After this, number 3, we discuss about the pitot tube. While discussing the pitot tube, I told you that what is the stagnation pressure, what is this stagnation pressure, what is this kinetic pressure, dynamic pressure, or what is this static pressure, okay? And I also told you one very important formula. The important formula was, stagnation pressure, it is equal to static pressure plus dynamic pressure. Static pressure and plus dynamic pressure. Dynamic pressure. That is the stagnation pressure. And velocity that we get, that is equal to V under root of 2 into H from the pitot tube that we are getting. And what is this H? H is the, so this is the pipe, this is the pitot tube that you have attached, H is above it. So this is my H, above the water surface. This is this H. Yes, CD values I also told you. CD value for Venturi meter was nearly 0.96 something, and for orifice meter it was coming out from 0.6 to 0.7. Okay, I also told you about the CD values also for orifice meter as well as for the Venturi meter. So Venturi meter is supposed to be as more accurate as compared to the orifice meter. Okay, so it's almost time, I guess. Yeah, dear students, almost time. Okay, so I'm leaving you here with fluid dynamics portion. In next class, which will be the next part, we will be discussing about the momentum equation. After momentum equation, we will also be discussing about the Hagen-Pauli equation, or to be more precise, the velocity profile in laminar flow and turbulent flow, the boundary layer theory. And the last chapter we'll be discussing in the next class will be about the centrifugal pumps, will be the last chapter in this, right? Okay, so dear student, that's all for today. So I hope that I was able to make a quick revision. Obviously, you know that in quick revision we cannot solve big numericals because that will take a lot of time, because we have to finish this quick revision in 2 parts. So one part is for today, and today we have completed half of fluid dynamics portion. And the next part will be completing the rest of fluid dynamics plus viscous flow, turbulent flow, boundary layer and the centrifugal pumps in the next class. So till then, thank you everyone, and keep practicing. Okay, because if you will not practice, dear students, I am telling you, okay, the formula you will forget slowly you will forget all the formulae. So just keep practicing, okay, and get a very good rank in GATE exam. So thank you everyone. Have a nice day. Take care.